The following program is brought to you by Bruce Telecom.
Okay, I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores. And welcome back, everyone. First item is disclosure of pecuniary interest, and I'll ask any member if they have a pecuniary interest with anything on the agenda they'd like to declare. Seeing none, of course, you can declare one anytime if you need to. We have no additions or deletions, so that takes us on to adoption of minutes. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Vice Deputy Mayor, that Council adopt the minutes of the Council meeting of December 10, 2018 as presented. Are there any questions or comments to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. That takes us then on to the Committee of the Whole minutes of December 10, 2018 and January 8, 2018. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Rich, seconded by Councillor Carr. The Council note and file the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of December 10, 2018 and the Budget meeting minutes of January 8, 2019 as presented. Questions or comments to those two sets of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. That takes us then on to reports of municipal officers, and we have 4 reports, and the first report is a staff report on cannabis policy. And who has the report? Jay Posner has the report.
So yes, I'll just highlight some sections of the report, and we've heard it enough tonight that we have a week or so to make a decision on the whether we want to opt in or stay in or opt out of for the retail sales. But I want to highlight the survey results first. We did a survey that ended at the end of 2018 to solicit opinion on cannabis use in Saugeen Shores. It was a high turnout to the survey, but seriously, I'll leave the jokes to the mayor in the future. But I would say that, you know, more than 1,600 people did respond to the survey. That's a very, very good turnout for any survey that we've done. By comparison, the corporate strategic plan done just a year and a half ago or so was 829 respondents, and that was a very good survey in its turnout. What's even better is that the age range of those respondents was well balanced. It was fairly representative of the age mix in our community already, so what I'm saying is that I think we can rely on this survey and the responses to help provide more guidance to what's about to follow. 80% of respondents, or 4 in 5 people, did support storefront cannabis sales in Saugeen Shores. 74, or 3/4 of all respondents, had at least some concern with storefront cannabis. So, from those responses, it was mainly around safety, security, proximity to youth, and then visual exposure. Highlights of the survey in there. On retail sales, without going into all the detail here, I just wanted to update that as of today, only 10% of all Ontario municipalities have opted out. There's still a week left, so we don't know, but in our area, Southgate, Georgian Bluffs, and Northern Bruce Peninsula are the only municipalities that have opted out. I think Owen Sound, West Grey, and Kincardine have all chose to stay in. That's just for more information. You can review that. If you have questions, I can answer. I did want to highlight on the sign bylaw, the basis for the recommendation that we restrict signs so that they are not illuminated or that they cannot use sandwich boards to promote retail cannabis sales is that while we've got the sign bylaw, one of its guiding documents is the design guidelines. In this case, we have a fairly strong survey element that says visual exposure, and this is one of the tools we have to limit visual exposure to for retail cannabis sales. I want to highlight under consumption, just again, that it is important, 7 Acres said it earlier tonight, to harmonize our regulation of the consumption of cannabis within our community, and we try to harmonize with Bruce County, so we look forward to working with our county partners over the next little while. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much. So there is a motion, and I'll read it, and then we can take questions or comments. It's been moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Rich. The council stay silent on the matter of retail cannabis stores in Saugeen Shores and thus forfeit the right to opt out in future, and that council approve the retail cannabis policy attached to and forming part of this report, and that council authorize the CAO or delegate to provide comments to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario in accordance with the attached retail cannabis policy whenever a retail cannabis store is proposed within Saugeen Shores, and that council authorize staff to prepare an amendment to the sign bylaw restricting the use and display of signs for retail cannabis stores, and that an amending bylaw be brought back to council for further consideration, and that council authorize staff to prepare policies and or bylaws necessary for the regulating of recreational cannabis consumption similar to alcohol consumption, and that these policies and bylaws be brought back to council for further consideration and after further consultation with Bruce County municipalities, and that council authorize staff to prepare policies and or bylaws necessary for the prohibition of the consumption of recreational cannabis on municipally owned land, and that these policies and bylaws be brought back to council for further consideration. Questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will be supporting the recommendations of staff today, which is to stay silent on it and thereby not opt out of retail cannabis in our community. I think our community is as a tourist community, and we like to consider ourselves a full service tourist community. And going forward, I think that retail cannabis will only enhance that full service destination that we hope to have, so that people will decide to come here and spend their vacation dollars and their vacation time. I'd like to commend staff on the survey. The survey results were excellent. 1,600 respondents, and the in favor rating of 80% really, makes it clear to me and to most people. I think that this is the way we're going. Prohibition is gone, and this is a legal substance, and we need to move on and allow the industry to grow. Certainly the survey created quite a bit of buzz in the community. And I heard a lot of people talking about it, and I hope that it passes today. Thank you.
I think this is going to be a long debate. Councillor Schreider.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll also be supporting it. I do have a few questions with regards to, Jay, you had talked about the policy or bylaws coming back, and that the consumption would be similar to the alcohol consumption. Was there any consideration to creating that bylaw, I guess, around the Smoke-Free Ontario Act versus the alcohol consumption?
Well, certainly we put forward two options for council. Staff prefer the alcohol because the regulation as per alcohol, because it adds a little bit more restriction for where it could be used on properties in town. Where, for example, the beach, you could smoke at the beach, but you can't consume alcohol. It seems that consumption of cannabis in that instance maybe should be more aligned with alcohol. So that was sort of our main guiding principle in our head. Certainly, we do advocate for not trying to pick sort of a third or fourth or create 5 or 6 different options. Try to keep it simple. So look at the smoke-free or more align it with alcohol. But really, I don't have, other than I lean more towards regulating alcohol, I don't have a strong preference.
I was just wondering, just to follow up through you, just to follow up with regards to maybe some of the enforcement is with public health having an officer and for them to be able to support some of the enforcement would that be the case then if we went with with regards to the alcohol consumption rules, I guess, as well? Just through public health. And then just one more further question, I guess, with regards to the setback. So it was 150 meters around schools, which I believe is the regulation, and then the municipality is looking at perhaps adding public buildings, arenas, places of recreation. Would it be possible when the bylaw comes back to us would be to have a map with GIS and actually show those boundaries to see exactly what zoning and what areas this would be permitted at?
And no problem. That seems reasonable to provide a map when we bring that forward. When we looked at it, I have a map in my office, but I should have brought it here. As for the enforcement through the health unit, certainly I'll be part of the information in bringing the bylaws back as to how it should be best enforced. So, yeah, I'm not an expert in that area, but I certainly leave that. Maybe if David already can answer that.
CAO.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that Jay did look at we will bring back your request. We did look at the 150 meters to make sure that it wasn't overly restrictive and that it wouldn't squeeze out any opportunity. Both Southampton and Port Elgin, lots of steel remaining where.
Further comments from members of council? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd first like to commend Jay for excellent work with preparing the report, and which covers all bases. So, Jay, thanks very much. You did a lot of work on this. I'll be supporting this recommendation. I believe the survey results do provide a good indication of how the majority of residents are feeling about the licensing of a bricks and mortar cannabis store. Cannabis users have three choices: order cannabis products online from the Ontario Cannabis Store website, travel to a cannabis store in a community that has a minimum of 50,000 people and where a cannabis operator is legally operating, or secure it via the black market. If the latter option is more convenient and efficient, individuals will continue to utilize it. My only fear is with the province deciding to license just 25 cannabis sites across the province, and these storefronts, incidentally, will be located in larger centers with a 50,000 population or greater. In other words, if users want it, they'll have to travel to get it. Or if it's more convenient and efficient cost-wise, users may turn to the black market. The black market will not only continue to exist, but will thrive in some communities, and those breaking the law and selling illegally will continue to be challenging for our police force. When buying through the black market, one does not really know what they're getting. The 18-year-old purchasing marijuana in the local park, for example, from an illegal dealer, receive a product laced with fentanyl. So for me, it's not so much whether or not we're able to license or not license cannabis stores, but rather the decision between legal cannabis storefronts who are able to sell cannabis products as regulated by Health Canada, or the proliferation of illegal cannabis in our community. I prefer having some control through regulated sales of cannabis. So I believe our residents who completed the survey have gotten it right. I believe we are making the correct decision, Mr. Mayor, to stay silent and leave the door open to bricks and mortar storefront in the future once the population restriction is lifted. I also like Jay's comments pertaining to where the use of cannabis can take place. I will not be supporting in the future any notion of legalizing the use of cannabis in public places, and would recommend to this council that the use of cannabis follows similar laws as set down in the provincial alcohol regulations. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll be supporting this recommendation. I think it's something we need to leave the door open. Federal government has made the decision to regulate it. It's legal, and let's get out of the black market business and support bricks and mortar.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also will be supporting this recommendation. I just wanted to add 2 points. I agree with the points made by my colleagues already, but I really appreciate the attempt to try to consult within Bruce County municipalities and to reach some kind of consistent policy for the municipalities that are participating. I think that's a really important initiative. I also wanted to just say that a point made by Mr. Robertson in his deputation tonight was something I hadn't really thought about before, but that's the idea that an advantage of brick and mortar stores is the opportunity to educate people who aren't familiar enough with the product to be able to, confidently and reliably order the product online, and I think that's a good argument in favor of this as well, and in favor of making sure that this is being marketed as safely as possible. Thanks.
Further comments from members? Okay, well, I will say with regard to the consultation between Bruce County municipalities, it's something that Bruce County municipalities are very interested in doing. As far as I can sense, there's virtual unanimous sense among Bruce County mayors that that's the right thing to do, and so I think I would suspend any sort of judgment on that paragraph in here, because I think the most important part of it is that last line, after further consultation with Bruce County municipalities. Let's do that consultation. Let's make sure that let's try our best anyway to make sure that whatever we settle on is we have in common, because as the delegation rightly pointed out, if we have different rules than Kincardine does, than South Bruce Peninsula does, than Erin Elderslie does, we may as well not have regulations, because no one will know what our regulations are. A few people but us know where the boundaries between those municipalities even are. So I think it's really incumbent on us to make sure that we have as broad a sense of, that those regulations are as broadly held as possible, so that we have the optimum chance of enforcing them. I do like, and I would say that we have taken steps in Saugeen Shores in recent years, more aggressively than ever now, I think, to go after illegal drugs in this community. As I said during the budget discussion, we intentionally hired a police chief with the expertise to target those people who would purvey illicit drugs in the town of Saugeen Shores. And I can tell you the Saugeen Shores Police Service will be relentless in targeting those people. We are privileged to have our own police force in the town of Saugeen Shores, and that gives us strength to do that. And those folks who are in that business in this community will find themselves under a great deal of pressure from our police service. And this, I would say, is a tool in the toolkit for the police service to help with that work, to drive illegal drug traffickers out of this community by ensuring that their markets dry up and by ensuring that they have no peace under which to operate. So I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, and we should be proud to do it. So with that, you've heard the motion. All in favor? That's carried. Now, I talked on so long, I've been logged out of my computer. Okay. So that moves us then on to item 2, which is the report of the striking committee with regard to the 2019 meeting schedule. Do you have any comments to that, Linda?
No, I do not have any additional comments.
Okay, so we'll read the motion. It's been moved by Councillor Schreider, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that Council accept the striking committee's recommendations and make the following changes to the 2019 meeting schedule. 1, that the January 28th meetings be cancelled. 2, that the July 8th and August 12th meetings be cancelled. And 3, that the December 23rd meetings be cancelled. Are there any questions or comments to the motion? Vice Deputy
The
Mayor.
only comment I had, Mr. Mayor, that in the July-August schedule is something I don't believe we've done a whole lot in the past. There's a fair amount of time frame in between those meetings. I suppose that if there was business that was to come up, is it at the call of the Mayor, where if we felt we needed a meeting in between, that we certainly could do that, correct?
Council can always meet at the call of the chair, but I would say that through that period, Council would take steps, and maybe the CAO can make comments on this too, to delegate some of its authorities to the CAO with some reporting requirements involved in there, but to take action if required in our place. I think it's generally the summer months are quieter, and so it should be it shouldn't be a problem, I don't think, to forgo those meetings, and we'll try it out this year, and I expect it will work. Do you have any comments, David? Is that good enough? Is there any other questions or comments to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. That moves us on to item 3, the striking committee report on amendments to the procedural bylaw. And I have a motion moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Smith, that Council accept the striking committee's recommendation and amend the procedural bylaw as outlined in Schedule A, attached to the striking committee report, and that staff be directed to prepare for Council's consideration a bylaw to enact the recommended changes. Questions or comments to this motion? See any? So all in favor? That's carried. And finally, report number 4, the striking committee report with regard to committee appointments. And I have a motion moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Schreider, that council accept the striking committee's recommendation and approve the recommended appointments to the boards and committees for the term 2019 to 2020 as outlined in the striking committee report. Questions or comments to the motion? Any? I will just say, for the sake of those who are listening, that this is a first step in what is going to become a multi-step process to appoint committees for council this term, as some will. So we're appointing council members in this case to boards and committees, as well as a few members of the public to some of our municipal boards. But as some will know, we have advertisements out until the 22nd of this month, looking for appointees to some of our statutory committees, all of our statutory committees. And so we'll be making appointments to those thereafter. And then we are also reviewing the rest of the committee structure at this time. And council will be considering its options in terms of how else to engage members of the public. So it's taking us a little longer than usual. I hope that I would just like to reassure members of the public that we are looking at ways to better engage more people. And certainly I'm looking forward to those reports coming forward, because I think we're going to have an exciting new way of handling committees. So I have read the motion. No comments, so all in favor? Carried. All right, and that takes us on to motions of notices of motions, and this is a notice of motion this evening from the Vice Deputy Mayor. So it's here for your information and will be discussed and debated at our next regular council meeting. And so that moves us then on to our bylaws, and we have a new way of doing this too. We're going to approve all of these bylaws well, if we choose to approve them, in a single resolution. So it's going to be one long resolution, but once I'm finished reading it, it'll be over, so you can feel good about that. All right. I have a motion that has been moved by Councillor Grace, seconded by Councillor Mayette, that the following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 14th day of January 2019. 1. Bylaw 1, 2019, being a bylaw authorizing the borrowing of money to meet the current expenditures of the Corporation of the Town of Saugeen Shores. 2. Bylaw 2, 2019, being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy for the year 2019 and to provide for the payment of taxes and to provide for penalty and interest. 3. Bylaw 3, 2019, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 75, 2006, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Town of Saugeen Shores by Dane Butner and Tracy Sousa for 617 Catherine Street and 546 Bricker Street, Town of Saugeen Shores. 4. Bylaw 4, 2019, being a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with 767091 Ontario Limited. 5. Bylaw 5, 2019, being a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with Skyline Real Estate Holdings Incorporated. 6. Bylaw 6, 2017, being a bylaw to appoint a lottery licensing officer for the Town of Saugeen Shores. And 7. Bylaw 7, 2019, being a bylaw to set fees and charges for the provision of services or activities for the Town of Saugeen Shores. And 8, Bylaw 8, 2019, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meetings of the Corporation of the Town of Saugeen Shores. I will say for council's information that if a member of council, when we have a resolution like this, wishes to pull one of these items out for separate consideration, you may do so by resolution. Since this is the first time we've done this, I just thought I would let you know that. Are there any questions or comments to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. All right, and that moves us then on to adjournment. I have a motion moved by Councillor Mayette, seconded by Councillor Grace, that this regular council meeting of January 14, 2019 hereby adjourns at 8:50 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Thank you all very much.
preceding program was brought to you by Bruce Telecom.